Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. In today's video I want to cover MedicalChain, the first in a series of projects I want to cover that are disrupting the healthcare industry. Now if you follow my work you'll know I'm a pharmacist by trade, so let's dive in and take a look at MedicalChain that are building a blockchain based platform for electronic record keeping. Now MedicalChain is going to use blockchain technology to securely store health records and maintain a single version of truth. Now that's the first important point I want to talk about. So at the moment the legacy healthcare system is very fragmented, it's very siloed. So you can go to your GP and they're going to have a different record system, a different format to when you go to the hospital, to when you go to the pharmacy, and none of these record keeping systems communicate with one another, and that's for a couple of reasons. Now privacy laws vary in different countries, but it's also due to the technological limitations, and that's what MedicalChain want to disrupt. So once you have a digital version on the distributed ledger of your healthcare records, it really, as they're saying here, empowers the patient to take back control of their health records and decide who can access it, at what capacity, and also you can monetize this by allowing that data to flow to research institutions and all that sort of thing as well. So Andreas Antonopoulos has done some great talks about why he believes medical record keeping is a bad application of blockchain technology, but I disagree with him in this instant here, where they're building an entire platform to utilize health records and change the patient-doctor relationship as well as the interprofessional communication between physician and researcher, patient, breaking down all those barriers with the legacy system. So why is this such a huge issue? The latest stats here, we've got medical error as the third leading cause of death in the United States. Now this isn't just doctor prescribing as such, this is medical error. So where we don't have accurate data, or there's been miscommunication, double dosing, all these sort of things. And as I mentioned, if you go to the pharmacy, you might get a completely different brand to what you got at the hospital, and they haven't got your records from when you last saw your GP, and this is how these sort of errors arise. I've seen it firsthand time and time again. So let's dive in to have a look at how their system's going to fix these issues. So the first part here, privacy and access control. So once the patient has full access and control over their data, they'll have the capability to provide differing levels of access to various users. So you can assign who gets permission, at what level, who can query and write data to the blockchain. You're now the owner of this data. You can set up time-based access, all that sort of thing, and this is an absolute game changer. Think of the legacy system. Have you ever tried to look up what your immunization records were from back in high school through the government archives? It's just completely archaic, the legacy system. And once you have control of your healthcare records again, it is going to be a game changer. So the second part of this platform is the telemedicine communication. So online consulting is already a well-established business, but we don't always have access to your medical records when you call those web-based doctors or those just-in-time on-call services. So again, once you have your medical records, grant access to that physician, it really changes how this is going to all work and what is possible. The next aspect, licensing your healthcare records. So once you have control, you can start to benefit from this. So we've spoken on the channel a number of times about how data is a hot commodity and research institutions will pay to access your medical records, and you can choose, just like you can choose to take part in medical research or become an organ donor, you can choose what level of access pharmaceuticals and government researchers may have to all your healthcare records. Finally, app development. So this is a platform, and this is what is going to give it hopefully a lot of intrinsic value. The fact that third-party developers can build their applications on top and contribute to this ecosystem. We've seen those platform-based projects are the ones that tend to have value as other things start to get built out on top of that project. So just quickly, we should mention that this is a, dual-based blockchain ecosystem. So the Hyperledger fabric is what the medical records will be stored on. The patient has their their key, they can access it. The doctor also has a key to show who's written what, on what date, and edited those records and so on. And there's a couple of issues that arise from this that I'll talk about as well. But the second layer of the blockchain is, you know, that ERC20 Med token, which is the ICO, and that is also going to give you access to all these different applications on the platform through that Med token. So very strong team here, up to 15 members, a lot of experience in the, you know, appropriate fields. So we've got doctors, we've got IT specialists, business, health. So all these industries coming together. I think this is a fantastic team building a great project. But the question for me is whether or not they can get this out to mass adoption. So the big concerns I have, so have a look at their roadmap. It doesn't have a great deal of detail. I want to know how they plan to build that user database. How are they going to onboard all these doctors, you know, these different medical institutions and so on. A lot of these doctors have the ultimate say. They have the authority to access your healthcare records. So you're really turning this on its head if you're going to give that power back to the patient rather than those healthcare professionals. Now, a few other issues. What if a patient, you know, is unconscious or in a coma, which often happens in emergency situations? So there's a number of ways to get around this, and none of them are perfect. So are you going to maybe think about having digital chips or digital cards? Again, if that gets lost, how do you replace that? How does someone in an emergency situation get access to all your information? Now, what they're proposing is there'll be some basic information, you know, allergies and all that sort of thing to give to those paramedics in an emergency situation, and then the full records will be what's hidden. But again, I haven't been able to find a good solution about what happens if the patient loses their keys and those sort of issues. So there's a few questions that remain unanswered. There's not a great deal of detail here in the white paper. The other concern I had was the ICO and the structure. So I've read different stats that between 80 and 90% of tokens are already sold. Now that was very tiered between 10 cents and 18 cents, which is obviously a heavy discount to the remaining percent that's left to be sold. It's going to hit markets at 25%. So I'm not a fan of projects that have these big private sales and these big pre-sales. It comes to the average man on the street that wants to invest. He gets very few tokens, if any, at a higher price. So, you know, I'm not the best ICO structure. That's just my personal opinion, guys. Overall, I think this platform has a lot of benefits. So again, you can monetize your data for research, insurance benefits. If you can show, you know, think about all these Internet of Things, these wearables. If you can show data on, you know, your heart rate, your activity, your health, you get better insurance rates. Now, there's a number of benefits to this platform. Hopefully, I've highlighted those in great detail. There is plenty of competition. As I said, I'll cover other healthcare related projects on the channel this week. Ultimately, I believe this project, if it can succeed, is going to deliver a higher quality of patient care. They're going to solve a variety of issues in the real world that we've discussed today. I think this one is overall gets my tick of approval. One that I definitely think is solving real world issues and that I'd love to use personally. Hopefully they get around those privacy issues in every country, as well as those you know, finer details on who gets access to what and how patients control that private key. So I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, guys. Please hit like, subscribe if you haven't already, share these videos around, and as always, thanks for tuning in, guys. Cheers.